Good hip and pull straight up here, and then you pull in. You want to go here if you're having. I look so funny doing this because I'm so small.
Rising star.
Alba, as a junior last year, competed in the Open.
There it is. Match totals for Alba and Chiara heading into deadlift.
Easy work of that. Ow!
And look at Alba.
2024 edition from Sweden, Alba Boström.
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another YouTube video, and in this video I'm gonna break down my 5 best technique tips on how to deadlift. And these tips are gonna be universal, so you can use them no matter if you're pulling conventional or if you're doing sumo. If you have no idea which one is which, let me show you. So this is a sumo deadlift. You have a wider stance. It could be super wide like I am now, or you could be kind of semi-sumo. And then conventional is the quote-unquote normal deadlift, where you go here. So basically in today's video, I want to go over 5 tips, like I said, and they're gonna work for both of these. And then there are obviously a lot of other tips you can think about. There are multiple thousands and thousands of cues that you can think about when it comes to your deadlift, squat, bench press, no matter what the lift is. But these ones are what I would say the absolute basics and fundamentals. And if you follow these tips, I am sure that your deadlift is gonna get a little bit better, if not a lot better, especially if you're a beginner and especially if you're very unsure about your technique. So with that said, let's get into it. So the first tip that I have for you in this video is going to be to pull the slack out of the bar and learn how to do this. And so there are so many ways to describe how to pull the slack out of the bar. I'm sure you may have heard about it in the past, but just to tell you what it is. So first of all, what we mean when we say pull the slack out of bar in reality is that there's a small slack between the weight and the bar in order to efficiently get the weight on the bar. And so right now the bar is, you could say it's relaxed, and that we have that slack, that empty space between the weight and the bar. So if I pull the bar up a little bit, I'm gonna basically take that slack away. I'm gonna pull the bar up into that so we no longer have that empty space, at least at the top, on the direction we want to go. Because otherwise it's right now in the bottom. So basically that is the slack. However, I'm gonna tell you and be honest, a lot of people will tell you, listen for a click. Because when I do this, I can hear a small click when it gets up. But thinking about that click when you're actually pulling is a very hard thing. And I think if you're too focused on just taking the slack, that empty space out of the bar, I think in all honesty, you're not gonna get the true benefits that we want from thinking about pulling the slack out of the bar. So when I think about pulling the slack out of the bar, when I teach pulling the slack out of the bar, what I actually do think about instead is to focus on pulling the bar upwards with all my might and pushing my legs down with all my might. And when I'm doing that, I'm gonna create a tension, and it will be hard to have that position. And this is a key thing. When you pull the slack out of the bar in the right way, when the weight is easy enough, the bar is automatically gonna come up off the floor. When it's not easy enough, it's gonna be hard to maintain that position. You're gonna struggle and you have to endure because you're gonna have so much tension. It's almost like you're actually lifting before you're lifting. And that's kind of how I like to think about it. So in a sumo, since I pull sumo, what I would do is I place myself where I want. I'll go over more about that in later tips, but this is the most fundamental tip. And then I'm gonna go down and grip the bar. And when I grip it, I'm gonna grip it super tight and pull upwards. Not with my arms like this, but just push my chest up a little bit so my arm stretches out and I get that tightness. And at the same time, I'll think about pushing my legs down. So what I like to do when I'm standing here is actually make sure I have mid-foot pressure. And already right now, I usually do this a few times, just to think about pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. And then I go down, I grip, and I have the tight. You see right now the weight is super easy because it's only 30 kilos. So I get it already. So I grip, and then I sit back, and then I pull. And when I'm here, let me tell you, even if it's 30 kilos, as long as I don't think about pulling the weight up, it is super hard. I basically start using all of the muscles in my body already before I even lift. So just focusing on that. And one thing that I want to add to this, if you're like me and you like to do a hip movement, which will be one of the tips later on in this video, if you're like me and you like to go and do this in order to pull, if you do too big of a motion, you're going to have to lose the slack. Because when I go back here, it's hard to maintain the slack at the same time, especially if you do it fast. You can do it, definitely can if you really think about it, but it happens very easily that you lose it. So what I want you to know is, if you're doing that hip movement, which we will talk about more later, make sure that while you're doing it, you're never, ever, ever losing the slack. And usually when I get the perfect slack out of the bar, my hip movement is actually gonna be a little bit less than normal because I don't really need it that much anymore. So I go down, grip, hold the slack, and I basically just think about feet down, chest up, and hard grip. So I pull the bar up without actually pulling the weight. And then I go in and I pull. And so why do you want to have the slack and pull the slack out of the bar? Well, it's basically because when you do pull the slack before you lift, you're gonna be tight and prepared for the heavy load. If it's a very easy weight, like it is for me now, I can maintain position no matter what. I can just do the same thing and I don't really have to think about it. But when the weight is heavy, usually what's gonna happen, in order to be able to break the bar from the floor, I need to be super tight to maintain position, or what's gonna happen is I will go here, and in order to actually get it off the bar, I'm gonna have to usually go and round my back to get momentum and get it up. So if you don't have the slack, you're gonna be more likely to actually lose tension and position in the bottom, which could make your lockout way harder. I used to have the biggest issue with lockouts. I would miss and fail record attempts, national record attempts, so many times for years because I couldn't lock out. I could lift anything off the floor, but I couldn't do a good lockout. And I always thought it was because my lockout was weak and I tried training it and nothing happened. And then when I actually learned the slack and I learned to really maintain position in the bottom, that's when I was able to get a good lockout, because the issue wasn't that I was weak in my lockout, the issue is I was weak in the bottom position, so I couldn't maintain my position enough, and then I would compromise my lockout position because I would basically be here. And this is a super hard position to lock out from. You want to be here, or you can go straight up and just push your hips forward. Now, when the weight is super heavy, I still do lose my position a little bit, and that is fine. But by pulling the slack, you minimize it and make sure you have more control over the bar, and you're able to really control how far and how hard you actually push it. And this is just like a key thing, and it's why I stress it as the first and most important tip to learn. No matter what your deadlift technique is, pulling the slack out of the bar and making sure you create tension before you actually lift is the most fundamental thing. So with that said, let's go into tip number 2. Okay, so tip number 2 is actually going to be the hip hinge. Basically, what I mean is learn to utilize and use your legs by doing some kind of hip movement. You don't have to necessarily do this. There are a lot of great deadlifters that literally just go like this. So you can do it, but what I'm gonna say, it definitely demands more patience and endurance, in my opinion. And sometimes it's easier to make that push. It's like if I go here and I'm gonna push the wall and I just now go push the wall, it's gonna be a little bit harder versus if I actually go and then push the wall. I get more of a push in the bottom, and that's how I like to think about the hip movement. So I showed you this before, but basically what I do, and I do this no matter if it's sumo or if it's conventional. I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do this, and it's that I go down and pull the slack here. When I do pull the slack and get the tension, my hips are way too low in order to actually pull the bar. So I could go and not go as low with my hips and then pull straight from here. But I found that I'm weaker that way, which is why I don't do it. So instead, what I like to do is I go down, grip and sit down, and then I push my hips back and forward again. And when they come forward, that's when the hip height is perfect and I actually get that push. when I go here in with hips, it's like that push when I go into the wall, if I'm gonna push it. So I hope that makes sense. So basically that's why I like to do it. And I could do the same thing if I'm doing sumo. I go down, sit down, hips back, and then forward. And basically when I come forward, when I actually touch the bar with my legs, that's when I start pulling the bar upwards. So I try to do it at the same time and have that timing. Now you could also, if you prefer, you could actually go down, sit down to pull the slack, wiggle a little bit to just enhance the slack and the tension, which I really enjoy. It's hard and it's tough, but that's when you get a lot from it as well. So I do that, but then you could also then push your hips higher and then pull. This is easier and more common, I would say, in the conventional, where I go sit down and then I push my hips up and then pull to get into that position. But I would say the first one is definitely easier and would make more sense and is easier to get. And it is my personal favorite as well, but there's not really any right or wrong way to deadlift. So try it and see how it feels for you. But like I said, you push down, you pull the slack, hips back, remember to keep the slack, and then you pull in, and then you push up. And that is basically your way of getting that momentum and getting a movement into it. Because if you think about it in bench press, any squat, you have that movement down first, and then you go up. Versus in deadlift, we lift up straight away. But if you can then create that kind of downward movement, you get a little bit more momentum into the bar, which I really like. So hip movement is tip number 2. Number 3 is to focus on your entire position the entire way. And what I mean by that, it's gonna be basically a lot of tips in one, in a sense. Having patience, a lot of patience off the floor, making sure you pull the bar close to your body at the entire time until you pass your knees, and then push your hips forward, lean back to lock out. So mainly focusing on going straight up, but having that patience to your knees and then having an explosive lockout. So how this would look is, instead of, for example, first of all, as I said, I want to pull the bar close to me. You don't necessarily have to stand with the bar touching your legs at this point, because when I bend my legs, my knees are gonna come forward, meaning this is gonna happen. And for a lot of people, it could mean you start with the bar close to you, but it ends up being super far away from you, and then you try to lift. And every single millimeter away from you that the bar is, it's gonna be way heavier. And that could be you versus you actually getting the lift versus you failing the lift. So instead, what you really want to try to do is go down, and I like to stand a little bit away from the bar, having the bar like just above my midfoot. And then once I come down and bend my knees, the bar is gonna touch my shins. Same for sumo, I stand a little bit behind it, go forward, and then it's gonna touch. And if it doesn't, I make sure to roll the bar to my legs so it touches my legs before I actually pull. So you want to go down close to your body, and then do the hip and pull straight up here, and now lock out. Versus going and not thinking about it, because very often in sumo, especially when you see hard lockouts, is you can see that they lock their knees too early. Like I showed you in the past, I've had this issue, and sometimes when the weight is too heavy for me, I'm either, when it's like a max effort, let's say it's a weight I can't do, it's too heavy for me, I'm either gonna fail it by I get it up to my knees and then I lose it, or I'm not gonna be able to pull it off the floor at all. It basically depends on how much I can endure. If I can endure the bottom position all the time, but it's too heavy, I'm just not gonna be able to lift it. And then if I can't endure, I'm gonna be able to lift it a little bit and then lose it later on because I lose that position, and then I can't lock it out anyway. So for me, it's like, it's the same thing. So what I really try to think about is going straight up. You know, there's gonna be a lot of lifters having a very round back when they lift. That is completely fine. You can have that if you want to, and then I mean your upper back, not your lower back. If it's something you prefer to get your longer arms, you could try that. But what I would say is, even if you have a round back, try to have your shoulders, or basically your armpit, right above the barbell, and try to still pull straight up and then go here. So even I personally push my chest forward a lot because I enjoy that, I prefer it, and I pull my scapula together because it doesn't really change the length of my arms that much, but then I can go straight up, boom, and I get an easier lockout. Sometimes I've been lifting here, and then I usually get a harder lockout. Instead, it was so easy, that was hard to demonstrate. But so the point is, of the third tip, is to pull up with patience close to your body, straight up, and try to maintain patience and just think about enduring until you get to your knees, and then explosively, hips forward, and you lean back a little bit. You will look, boom, like that. And in conventional, like that, versus going here and losing position and then locking out my hips too early, because then this could happen with my knees. So it's mainly trying to have that timing where you don't lock your knees too early, but you maintain that patience in the bottom. That will help a lot. And for a lot of you, it will help by thinking about pushing your chest up. If you're someone who prefers to be like this, then make sure your lats are still locked and tight, and you definitely think about pulling the slack. It's even more important because it will be easier to fall down, especially if you're not used to it, especially in the beginning. But you can try both of those tips. For most people, especially beginners, I think it's easier to just keep your chest up, but it's not the universal rule. A lot of people prefer having a rounded back, so you can have that as well. You just don't want to round your lower back too much, but your upper back being a little bit rounded is completely fine. Okay, tip number 4 is going to be your breathing. I think breathing is such an important key factor in every lift and all the training that you do. I think it's something that is not spoken about enough when it comes to powerlifting. But so what I would say here is try to breathe in different increments and in different steps. So first of all, I would breathe at the top before you go down to grip the bar. And this is because when you're bent over or hunched down to grip the bar, it's harder to get a full breath of air. But when you're standing up and you're upright, it's way easier to get a big breath of air into your tummy. So take a big breath when you're standing up and expand your entire tummy. You can think about, this is a drill you can do. Take your hands like this, push them into your sides, take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, and then hold it for 4 seconds. And you want to expand your hands out to the side when you breathe in. Like that, because that's going to allow you to really get your core engaged, and not just your abs, but your entire core. 360 movements, that's what we want with a good brace. So you get that big breath when you're standing up. Now, you're not going to be able to keep that one breath until you lift, unless you have a super fast setup. But if you follow these steps and if you're a little bit slower, you will get lightheaded and it will be hard to just keep. So what I like to do is, once you're going down and gripping the bar, you puff up a little bit of air. So you just go through pursed lips. When you do that, you maintain all the tension in your core that you just built up, but you push out some air so you don't get lightheaded. And then just before you lift, when you're doing your hip movement, that's when you suck in a new deep breath of air. And now, since you already have the tension created, you're just gonna need that extra air to fill up the air that you just let out, but the tension is still gonna be there. And then on the way up, maybe after you pass the knees, you can start squeezing out air through pursed lips, like psh. Or you can wait until you're at the top and you're locked out, or you can wait until you're in the bottom. I like to do it in the lockout, and then just when I get down again on the floor for the next rep, I take a new breath of air just before the next rep. So let me demonstrate how this looks. I stand here, think about my core getting tight. Something like that. And I think this helps to just maintain that tension and also make sure you just don't get lightheaded. If you're doing a lot of reps, this will help you be able to keep your breath and your core all the time. So please try that out. And that was tip number 4. Last and final tip is just going to be grip. So I think that if you get your hip movement right, if you get the slack, if you pull the bar close to your body, straight up, you lock out with good timing, you focus on your breathing, you do it in 3 sequences, breathing in once you're up here, and then squeezing out air as you're gripping, taking a new breath during the hip movement, and then pushing up and breathing out at the top. I think if you get those down, you're gonna have a really good deadlift technique, no matter your width and everything. And you can, with your width and the style that you want to do for deadlifts, you want to do conventional or sumo, try around, see what feels best for you. You can even do both. You don't have to decide on just one. If you're competing, it's good to decide which one you're strongest in and compete in. But then if you just want to train and do deadlifts, then it doesn't really matter that much. With that said, the last tip, and tip number 5, is your grip. And just how to grip the bar. And so I'm just gonna show you 2 ways to do it, and it's gonna be a mixed grip, which is what I'm doing, versus a hook grip. I'm gonna say a hook grip, I've tried it. I don't personally like it, it hurts. And for me, I think if you give hook grip enough time, it's gonna work like wonders. It will be amazing, but it is painful. If you have any bruises, it will be hard, and also you have to endure it. And for me, it was just too much focus on my grip, and I literally just tried hook grip to get more comfortable being down and give myself more time in the bottom to pull the slack and get ready before I start pulling, because with mixed grip, I noticed myself stressing. Just trying hook grip helped me fix that. I didn't need to go to hook grip completely. I did that for a few weeks and it was fine, and then I went back to mixed grip because I just couldn't lift more than like 180 without, I failed 185 with hook grip because I focused on my grip versus anything else, but I could do like reps on 170, so it was just a bit weird. But with that said, so a hook grip is basically more painful, so I'm just gonna start with that. I think most of you are gonna do mixed grip, but a hook grip, what you basically do is you put the bar here, and then you round your thumb around the bar, and then you take these 2 fingers and you set one on top here, and then one on your nail. So you go there, one on your nail, and here, one on your nail. And then you can basically like roll it in, make sure you're tight, and then from here, you can lift. I personally think it's harder, so I'm not the best one to teach you hook grip since I don't do it. I've tried it and I've helped a few people, but since I don't do it all the time. But that's basically from everything that I taught, I checked so many videos on how to do it when I learned to do it the first time. That's what I learned and how to do it, and it worked very well. It was just that overall, I didn't think that the sacrifice was worth it for me because I didn't have an issue with mixed grip. So with mixed grip, you're basically gonna be having one hand to the other side, and you want to grip the bar somewhere here. If you go too far down into the hand, there's a bigger risk of it ripping. There are some people having the bar very far down in their fingers, and I think that's completely fine, especially if you have longer fingers. If you don't, then maybe you need to have it a little bit further up, but you can definitely play around with it. I've had the bar here in the past, but it was a little bit, basically, I noticed myself ripping a little bit too often here, so that's why I switched to having it up. And I feel like when I have the bar a little bit higher in my hand, it's easier for me to pull the slack because I get a firmer grip, and that helps with getting that slack feeling, which I like. Some people have it very far down in their hands to decrease the range of motion, and I guess you could try that, but focus on having a big, good grip or a strong grip first. And which hand you have in which way doesn't really matter. And if you're a big person, you may want to hold a little bit wider because you want to be just outside. So if you're standing here, obviously you can't hold here. You want to go here. If you're having, I look so funny doing this because I'm so small. But usually people in the bigger weight classes, since you are wider, will have a little bit of a wider stance and then hold a little bit wider. But otherwise, I would say just hold here before the glancing part of the bar. That's pretty much it. You just hold like this. And why you want to mix grip is because it will prevent the bar from rolling in your hand. If you just have a normal grip like this, the bar will roll in more in your hands. Do I think that you need to switch around from which hand you hold? If you notice yourself being uneven in your shoulders or in your scapula upper back, definitely try switching it around from time to time. I've had the same for 7 years now, and I haven't noticed any issues, but that's because I just hold on to it, but you can definitely, so you can switch around, but otherwise it's not that dangerous to have the same way all the time either. But you can do some easy deadlifts with an overhand grip if you want to train your grip strength, but otherwise mixed grip is really good. And then hook grip is also another option. So try around, see what works for you between a mixed grip, or if you really want to get deep down into hook grip. I have a lot of people that struggle with their grip strength with a mixed grip, for example, can try a hook grip. Or if they're feeling very uneven with a mixed grip, then they can try a hook grip. Or if they feel like they're stronger with an overhand grip versus a mixed grip because of their position to the bar, that's maybe also when you want to try a hook grip. But so that's the final tip, how to grip the bar, mixed grip versus hook grip. And with that said, that is it for this video. So it was just a quick one with my 5 fundamental tips that I think about in my own deadlift. Basically my holy fundamental and basics in my own opinion. So I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from it. Please let me know what else type of videos you want in the comment section below. If you have any ideas of how-to videos you want me to do, technique-wise, training-wise, program-wise, any questions that you have, and I'll try to make those type of videos. I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like the video if you liked it. And if you're interested in coaching, you can click the link below, and then you can schedule a call with my team and we'll see if we're a good match. So with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.